Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So Freelee the banana girl recently made a video kind of responding to Donald Trump's election as president of the United States, and it was kind of like a dumbed down version of a video that Jury Ryder put up like just before that. But yeah, so I've been a major Freelee fan like since I first came across her channel. I've always supported 100% what she said and done, and I've had nothing but positive things to say about her. But yeah, this video that she's just put up, even though it's pretty short about Trump, it's just made me like lose like the majority of my respect for her, and it's actually really embarrassing, and I'm like really ashamed to be a part of kind of her vegan community after that video and the things she talks about. So yeah, you definitely vote with your dollar and the system is definitely corrupt. I agree with her on that. But she goes on to talk about Trump and the election in such a blasé way, you know, like, do I support Trump? Oh well, you know, it's not a big deal, but here's what I think. So it's very flippant and very kind of ignorant and uneducated kind of approach, and I don't want to be a snob about this, but it's true. So basically Freelee's core message in this video are 2 points: that we need to stay out of the system, and that it doesn't matter who wins, and that we shouldn't vote. So the first point about staying out of the system is a bit ridiculous coming from Freelee, because, you know, Freelee has definitely benefited from the system. And I mean, obviously now she's makes her money from YouTube, and she's an independent creator, and she lives this kind of like alternative lifestyle, what she believes is separate from the system. But kind of let's look at her background and how she got here. She took full advantage of the system. Like, for example, she was on welfare for years before she came to YouTube. You know, I don't know, like I've heard so many, she talks about it herself, and you know, other people talk about it, and Freelee was on welfare for years. She was broke and she turned to the government for help. And where does welfare come from? Welfare comes from taxes that people that are actually working pay. So when you're working a job, or if you're like, you know, living in a country and you're paying taxes, those taxes go to the government, and those taxes fund like, you know, healthcare, transport, and people who are on the dole, people who are on welfare. And where are those taxes coming from as well? Like from like the meat and dairy industry, you know, they pay taxes as well, and that goes towards funding it. So her lifestyle prior to YouTube was, you know, living off welfare that was coming from the taxes of other hardworking people, and that was because it was part of a system and the government works that way. So Freelee is where she is now thanks to the system, and thanks to the election of whoever was in power at that time in the government, which allowed her access to this welfare. I mean, like, she owns a house, which means that she pays taxes, and taxes also go towards, you know, supporting the meat and dairy industry. That's where our taxes go as well, because like the meat and dairy, like agricultural industries, they're like highly subsidized by governments and whoever's in power. So it matters who's in power, because they decide where the taxes go. She is paying taxes, she said it herself. She doesn't want to risk not paying taxes. She talked about this at the festival, and that's like a major part of like government policies and who's in power in politics is like taxes. You hear that going around the whole time. I mean, she even has a lawyer on the side to help her out when, you know, the system starts to not go her way, or, you know, if something goes wrong. Also, what Freelee uses, like makes a lot of use out of, is the fair usage law. So that allows her to take footage from other people's content and use it in kind of like an educative way in her videos. Like, where does she think this law actually came from in the first place? Like, it didn't just come out of the air. It came like through policies that have been implemented and laws that have been introduced by the government and by people who are in charge and by people who have been elected to make these decisions. And obviously this fair usage law of footage also, you know, has a lot to do with free speech. And like, where does she think free speech came from? Like the fact that no one voted and no one like engaged in politics? No, it's because people did, and they fought from within the system, and they improved the system, And that's where Freelee's power of free speech comes from. It's from people before her who introduced these laws of fair usage and free speech. Another major issue in politics at the moment is the question of like visas and what countries you can lawfully live in and work in. And Freelee makes like such great use out of the Thai visas. I mean, she's in Thailand quite often, and she's done visa runs that have allowed her to stay in the country for months, and she doesn't seem to realize that she's able to do this because the person in power has decided that foreigners are allowed to do this. You know, like if it had been someone else in power that would have the ability to say, no foreigners are coming into Thailand, there are going to be no visas. So it's these decisions that are made by higher positions that would affect her lifestyle, and she doesn't seem to realize it, and like completely 100% takes it for granted, like that, you know, it's just allowed, you know, to go over to Thailand and stay there for months on end. No, there's a reason that we can do that, and it's because of politics and policies and legislations and visas implemented by those in power. Also the produce that vegans buy, you know, like for example here in Australia, for the working holiday visa, the government really like takes advantage of the fact that people want to be here, people want to work here, not just like Europeans, but people like desperate for work. They will come here and pick produce. You know, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of farms all over Australia, and there's currently like thousands of people working on them to produce fruit and vegetables for like vegans to eat because they're so desperate for a job. And the only reason they're able to do that is because the government has these programs set up that allow people to come in and do the dirty work that no one wants to do. So, and like, you know, I don't know about Freelee and whether she buys like where her produce is coming from, where she knows exactly where it's coming from, but like vegans in general just buy what they can afford, and we are able to buy vegan produce because of, you know, legislation which allows people to come into countries and pick fruit and allow us eat it. Also, she claims to be against system, but systems always kind of involve a leader, and Freelee definitely sees herself as a leader. I mean, she views herself as a pioneering figure of the vegan community, and when you look at a system or a government, they work the same. There's always kind of like a higher pyramid, and that's how she behaved, certainly at the festival. Like, she only wanted to hang out with people who had very large YouTube followings or whatever. That's just how it worked. She wasn't like mingling with any of the normal people. We were all kind of like her followers, and, you know, they do the Q&A, and you know, she'd be kind of just that figure in a system. Like, it's the exact same. It mirrors what she is choosing to ignore and not talk about and be ignorant about. So the second issue that I want to address is Freelee's point that it doesn't matter who won the election, and that therefore, like, we shouldn't vote. We have to look at the people in power are the ones, they're going to be making the decisions, the urgent decisions that are going to control everything. And we have to look at whose values and ethics are closest to veganism. So for me, veganism is all about equality, not just for humans, not just for animals, but for humans, for all minority groups. It's about being ethical, it's about, you know, awareness and selflessness, and we need to choose people who support these values. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be vegans themselves. Like, less than 5% of the American population are vegan. Let's get real here. We're not, the chances of having a vegan president or like is just so slim. And that's another thing. If Freelee was given the choice to vote for, if there was an election and there was a president who was vegan and who wanted to make all these changes for veganism, and there was another president who was against that, would you vote then, Freelee? Would you vote for the president then who supported veganism, or are you just kind of picking and choosing when you decide to engage in politics? And also, if it was what if Trump was saying that he was gonna ban YouTube, and, you know, YouTube was going to be wiped from the planet? What would you do then? Like, your source of income would be pretty much gone. What if like laws came out like prohibiting what's on YouTube, or just like banning YouTube altogether. You know, like there are countries where YouTube is banned, you know, so YouTube is allowed in your country and in most of the world because of the government and who that person in power is letting you use this platform. You know, it's not a given. Yeah, we definitely have to look very closely at the candidates, and to be honest, Trump is the worst candidate for veganism. I don't know if like Freelee has looked into any of his policies surrounding like awareness of global warming, which he believes is a Chinese hoax. He says that vegans should be punished and imprisoned and force-fed meatloaf because America is a Christian country and meat and potatoes is the way to go, like, and that veganism is just crazy, and that, you know, so actually Bernie Sanders seems to have been the best candidate for veganism because he was prepared to like introduce legislation which would have a really positive impact, and that's what we need to support. I mean, like, it's the same, I'm gonna make an analogy here. It's like when you buy vegan products from a non-vegan company, say for example a vegan protein powder. If we were to say, no, I'm not buying that vegan protein powder because I don't agree with the rest of the products in that company, it's the exact same thing when you say, I'm not voting for any president because they don't 100%, you know, embody veganism. And that's, you know, it's about supporting the right ethics where they're available. So another thing she talks about, and this is like a kind of like an illusion that a lot of vegans seem to think, like that all social problems will just disappear if the world went vegan. Like, it's just crazy. I mean, your MacBook, Freelee, like if the world went vegan tomorrow and there were no cattle or being killed, no animal slaughter, who's gonna make your MacBook and your phone? I would advise everyone to watch a documentary called Blood in the Mobile. Something like 3 million people die a year scraping minerals from the inside of mines to produce like cameras and phones and laptops. So if everyone went vegan and started buying fruit and vegetables tomorrow, like everyone in the world, like that's not going to change other things. It's not going to like change like immigration issues. It's not going to change like human like equality issues, abortion, LGBT rights. It's not going to change because we all start eating fruits and vegetables. Like, it's just, of course I think that veganism is the least we can do, and everyone should be vegan because it's absolutely the most important thing like that we can do for the environment and for ethics and for health. But it's just ludicrous to totally disengage from everything else that's going on in the world at the same time. Also, this is again the white privilege kind of situation. Like, obviously, you know, Freelee's doing quite comfortably over there in Australia, and I don't know how much she knows about what's going on in the world at the moment, that we're like, people are saying we're on the brink of World War III, and you know what's going on in Syria at the moment. It's just absolutely awful, and it's like saying that veganism is gonna change that regardless of who's in power is just ridiculous, because I'm gonna make another analogy here. And for example, during World War II, when the Holocaust was going on, if everyone in Germany had just gone vegan, do you think the Holocaust would have just disappeared? It's like the same thing you're trying to say now. Like, what's going on in Syria is just as bad and as urgent and as critical as the Holocaust. And if everyone went vegan, like, that's not going to solve that, you know? Like, we need people in power who are going to deal with other things as well. And like, maybe it is that the person who's like best prepared to deal with these like worldwide problems isn't vegan. So I'm just going to end this video by kind of reminding people of Gandhi and how he's the most famous vegetarian, and he introduced so many ideas, and he didn't have the same attitude of Freelee, this high and mighty, arrogant, let's just not engage with what doesn't suit us kind of attitude. He changed the system from within, and he did so many amazing things which made so many amazing changes. And even when we talk about legislation, I remember studying history, and you come across like legislative introduction that years and years later would prove to be like incredibly important. YouTube is an incredible platform for educating people, and it is insane that we have access to this knowledge that people didn't have access to these truths years and years and years ago. But YouTube has also turned into like a media entertainment platform, and of course she's doing a wonderful job spreading awareness about veganism. But this video was just a bit out of line. It was just flippant, it was disrespectful, it was embarrassing, it was uninformed. And also I wrote a response to this video in the comment section. I was just kind of very angry and frustrated in the moment when I saw it, because I just thought it showed such a lack of understanding. And she responded with, "Thanks for showing the world that you're a nasty little girl." I mean, that's the rhetoric of like a 10-year-old or something, not like a pioneer of something as important as the vegan movement. I mean, little girl, I'm 22. I mean, Freelee would only hang out with little girls at the festival, you know. She wanted to be seen with the young, hip in crowd. So like calling me a nasty little girl is just ridiculous, and I feel like I no longer support her now. I want to support people, leaders in this vegan movement, because I do think that the vegan movement does need leaders. But I want to support leaders who are able to engage in a discourse with their followers and talk about like important issues like this and delve deeper into them, not just turn around and say, "Oh, you're a nasty little girl." Like, please, it's just ridiculous and it's so immature. So I hope this video was somewhat comprehensive. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, and yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.